So we're live on Facebook as well, Amrita.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ABCD show. Hi, I'm Amrita Rajpan. I'm an early years specialist. I've been teaching for 22 years, but I've been learning my whole life. And that's why I have a company named Learn Grow. I'm passionate about creating learning environments that are engaging, meaningful, and fun for children. I'm also a sports nutritionist, an avid traveler, an active Rotarian. I'm the territory head for the Early Childhood Association Mumbai. I'm the founder of Learn Grow and the co-founder of the ABCD show.
Hi, I'm Bela Kutwani, also known as Big B. Big for the size of my heart and B for Bela. A fun-loving person with a great sense of humor and a passionate pickleball player. National Core Committee member of Early Childhood Association, founder and principal Cosmic Kids International, co-founder Puppet Maestros and the ABCD show. An educationist and a puppeteer who helps teachers to make learning fun for children by using puppets as a tool for teaching. My vision is to help parents and teachers raise emotionally intelligent children.
Welcome to season 2 of the ABCD show. First of all, we'd like to thank all our viewers for viewing our show, for being so committed to your own learning, and for showing us all your love. We are all geared up to get you the best educators to enhance your skills and to take your knowledge to new heights.
We have some really exciting basket of offerings. We have our ABCD shows where we will call experts to talk about their best practices. We will introduce you to some really value for money and effective products and services. And we have some incredible courses that will help you gain mastery in the subject.
Season 2 has a different format. We will have Ask Amrita and Bela on alternate Wednesdays, where you will ask us your questions on child development and we will revert. And on the other 2 Wednesdays, we will have ABCD shows with speakers, or we'll showcase new products or new ideas and innovations.
So parents and teachers, email us your questions on topics relating to early childhood development, education and rearing on the ABCD show 6@gmail.com. And we will be back with the answers on Facebook Live. Waiting to see you soon.
So, welcome to the ABCD show. Today, we have a workshop on reading, and I can't imagine what it would be like to not be able to read. Most of my childhood was spent lost in a book, transported into another world. But I've also seen many children struggling to read and finding absolutely no joy in it, especially children that have difficulties in learning. And that's why we have with us today Aysel Engineer, who is the co-founder and director of SpEd at the Rate Home, a company which strives to improve learning outcomes for children through empowering parents, teachers, and supporting children with differential needs. By profession, she's a clinical psychologist, a remedial educator with over 20 years of experience in remediation of children across various difficulties, and she's worked in an inclusive school setup for 10 years. Along with direct intervention, she is also involved with training professionals, conducting awareness workshops for teachers, parents, and other caregivers through these interventions. So welcome, Aysel.
Welcome from me to Aysel. Nice to have you on the ABCD show.
Thank you, Bela. Thank you, Amrita. I've always known you all on in several different ways. I mean, my first experience meeting Amrita was through my husband and her husband. They know each other. I know Bela through her brother. And then we've all ended up in the field of education, special education, regular education, but basically education. And it just shows that the importance of education can take us, across oceans, across seas, and bring us to one spot. And the same thing, I mean, it's a passionate area, and that's why we're all here today. I see a lot of eager faces. I heard before I switched my my video on, I could hear people saying, yes, I'm looking forward to this very much and things like that. So I'm really happy that we have a good, interested bunch of teachers. Thank you, Bela. Thank you, Amrita, for having me here. And thank you, everybody who's behind ABCD. It's a very warm welcome that you all expressed. To tell you a little bit about myself, just a very small bit, is that yes, I am a clinical psychologist and a remedial educator. Hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Perfect. Clear, right? Okay. So I started my career as a clinical psychologist, and there I was, busy testing children in various areas, whether it was school, whether it was, privately at my center. I even worked with Sion Hospital for a while. But I always found that there was one part that was missing. And that was the other part, which was remedial education, which I needed to plug in soon after I got my clinical psychology degree. The thing is, we score, not to undermine that at all, because that gives you an insight into the actual progression of the child. Like if you have a test before and then you have a test after, it helps you realize whether the child has moved on or, come down, lower, gone up, whatever it may be. So having said that, having been in clinical practice for so long, I decided that there had to be something I was doing with those scores. Where was my part in taking the child to the next level, to ensuring that he reads better, writes better, does a whole bunch of math better. And slowly and surely, reading turned out to be my forte. And I would say a lot of experience, a lot of research, a lot of practice has helped me to come where I am. I'm not at the end of my journey. I don't say I know it all, but definitely I'm at a position where I can help. And if I can, share my experiences with you, I think it would really help me also grow to the next level as it would to you. So welcome everybody, and thank you once again.
So, Aysel, what really is common between all of us over here is that we are all thinking for the child. That is the end of our journey, that we give the best that we can to the children. And wonderful having you here. We're not going to take much time. We're going to start with the questions because, as you heard, everyone's eager to know. So we'll start with, can you share with us the progression of reading? So how do children learn to read?
So to answer your question, basically, we all know that children are not born readers. When they're born, they definitely don't have any knowledge of the letter or even of sounds at that stage. But there is a slow progression which leads them into reading. And this is where we come in, because if we don't have an active part to play in this progression, we will not motivate the child to read. Like Amrita also said that she was an avid reader. I'm sure if her family, her children, or whoever was around her saw her reading, they would automatically be attracted to the word. to the book, to the newspaper, to the journal, to whatever she was reading. At this point, I would like to share a very alarming statistic. The idea is not to be clinical, but to tell you some truths behind what goes on. According to most research that we have seen, approximately 20 to 25% of children do not easily link sounds to letter symbols. When we're talking about linking sounds to letter symbols, is that the sound B has to be linked to the letter B that we see in written format or in a reading book. 20 to 25% don't easily link sounds to letter symbols. Isn't that an extremely shocking number? Also, 7 to 10% of children have substantial difficulty, and they're likely to need a comprehensive program involving a great deal of practice. Now, I know that a lot of us over here have just learned reading, how to read just by automatic, the letter just coming in front of us, the word being formed, and we could read it. A lot of children from the SSC stream I see had, I've had parents coming and telling me, we didn't have all this. We were just told to write a comprehension on my house, and we wrote. And everyone's house had a roof and a chimney and a door and windows with curtains in it. Everyone's fathers were working and mothers were housewives. And that was the 5 sentences that were required by a child in the first standard. I am not, again, get me very clearly, I'm not undermining any board or anything. What I'm saying is the automaticity with which reading happened for some of us. But there were also the smaller part that used to fail in subjects in school. And these failures were, now we know that they were not just failures because the child was, could not manage. He really had difficulty in the area of reading or of writing or math. Today we're talking about reading, so I'll be saying a lot of things that are connected to the reading area. But can you imagine that these children were not identified? And actually, these two groups of children that I was talking about, the 20 to 25% who don't easily link letters to sounds, letters to sound symbols, and the ones who are 7 to 10% who had difficulty in and required a comprehensive reading program. If we did not have reading as a program or as an intervention, these two groups of children would be lost. So what forms the basis? Amrita was asking me what forms the progression of reading. How do children learn to read basically? So there is a term which we will be visiting again and again in my shares with you called phonological awareness. Phonological awareness, remember, is always an auditory skill. It is not largely actually, it is only an auditory skill. We only listen. What does that mean? Can anybody help me with what you mean by auditory? I would like an interaction between the participants and me. So please feel free. We're a small group. Feel free to unmute and to say whatever you have on your mind. If you understand what I mean by auditory, please share.
Is it the sound of the letter? That sound makes?
Yes, sound of the letter is one thing. Anything else?
Listening to basically listening.
Listening, very good.
Listening to phonics, alphabetical phonics, typically a, b, k, like that.
Okay, so basically let's not restrict ourselves to what we are listening to, but to understand what it is that's happening, which is auditory based, which means that if I have to teach phonological awareness to a child, I can even teach it with eyes closed. You see how heavy the emphasis is on auditory? That's why I'm talking to you about eyes closed, because I want you completely to understand what I mean by phonological awareness. When we talk of phonics, yes, it is the sound linked to a letter symbol. But when we're talking about phonological awareness, it is the awareness. It is a broad term which encompasses language and divides it into different size chunks. When we are listening, what phonological awareness, I can refer to it as PA as well. What PA does is it identifies words from sentences. Now, we don't need a book to tell us that. We can already listen to something like that. Now, supposing I say, I like pizza. So I could say, I like pizza, right? I'm just making it very visual to show you that we can manipulate words within sentences. And that is largely auditory. If you didn't see me doing this, you would still be able to understand what I'm saying, in the sense, of course, comprehension is a big part of phonological awareness, but let's leave that equation right now and talk about pure phonological awareness. So it is largely auditory. So you understand what I mean, when I say you can close your eyes and teach it, or you can close your eyes and learn it, you would be using your hearing in a big, big way. So I could say things like, I like hamburger. I hate brinjal. So I didn't put my hand up for anything, but you could hear the break between the words in a sentence. So this is what phonological awareness helps you to do. It helps you differentiate the words within a sentence. Okay, so now because we're talking of progression, I'm going to jump a little bit and talk about the entire progression of reading, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritties of each of the areas. So once this is done, where the child is able to recognize words within a sentence, we can get our child to clap or snap individual syllables, which means that they understand that each word is also made up of syllables. Like, for example, if we say the word dog, it has one syllable, cat, one syllable. If we say giraffe, it's two syllables, giraffe. And if we say elephant, it's three syllables because it's elephant. Okay. Now let's do a simple exercise with each of our names. So I do see names here, and I'm going to just randomly pick names. And if anyone's left behind, please don't hesitate to, put up your hand and say, you didn't ask me. Okay. So let's begin with myself. Okay. I'm Aysel. So how many syllables do you hear in the word Aysel? I'm going to lead by clapping. So Aysel, that's two syllables. Dipti, would you like to go next and tell me, say your name and clap out the syllables?
Dipti.
And say two.
Two.
Two syllables. Jessie, very quickly.
Jessie. Two syllables.
Archana. Quickly, Archana. I just want it to be a very quick activity.
Okay. Archana.
Good. How many syllables was that?
Three.
Bindu.
Bindu.
Correct. Right. Girija.
Three syllables. Girija.
Excellent. Now, Anna. Anna, would you like to share? Okay, so I'm going to do it for Anna simply because I want to use her name as an example. Do you see the letters in Anna? It's A-N-A. It's a very short name, but it has two syllables. Anna, right? We're not saying Anna. We're saying Anna very clearly. But though Girija is short, it still has three syllables. So what is it showing you a pattern? Maybe we don't have time to go through everybody, but let's look at, what we can do with a short amount of time. So when I say that each syllable can be tapped out, we can see that every time you open your mouth, you can clap to a syllable, right? Which means that there's an involvement of a vowel in each syllable. Most syllables will have a vowel, like I-sil. You can see A-Y and S-E-L. In Bela, there would be B-E-L-A, Bela. Now you may argue and tell me something like sky. It doesn't have a single vowel. But here, though it is a single word with one syllable, Y becomes the vowel for it, right? So there is mostly a vowel or a sound of a vowel that you can hear in every syllable. Yeah. So did you get what I mean by syllable? So when we talk of progression, coming back to progression, we can go from words, the auditory aspect, which we can take out from the sentence. From that, we go to a smaller, finer, refined area, which is syllables or syllabication. And then we go on to even smaller units that are referred to as phonemes. Okay, just 1 second. I'll take this question because I would like to know what you have to share. Mamta, can you tell me?
Yeah, ma'am, just wanted to ask you that in which class do we need to introduce this syllable?
Okay, so to answer your question, Mamta, when we say that it is largely auditory, when can you begin? As soon as you can talk to the child. So you can begin as early as 1, 2, whatever age your child is responding and is able to listen to your commands. If your child is hungry and you're going to tell him to tap out the syllables, of course it won't work. So you have to, but the earliest when you have your communication established, the child can understand what you're saying, can understand that words form part of sentences. Suppose he's coming to you and saying, I want milk. That means he's communicating. He is easily able to hear your answer. Yes, I can give you some chocolate milk. Would you like chocolate? Would you like strawberry? If this kind of communication is going on, there's no difficulty in sharing syllables because you're not taking up a paper pen. You're not forcing him to write. You're not, emphasizing on grip or paper or anything before time. Syllables are auditory. So you can begin as soon as a child has some comprehension of language. That is a place to start. So even as early as 1.5, 2, it's fine. Okay.
Right.
Now, coming back to mom. Yeah.
Sorry, one more question.
Yes.
As we have the syllable in our syllabus as well. Okay, we have given a page wherein we have used some new words, hard words, and we have broken it into syllable. Now, as we know, suppose we are saying tiger. So tie and girl. So now we know tie ke baad there is a
slash.
Yeah. So how we let the kids know that here you want to, pause and this is 2 syllable.
Okay.
So how, yeah.
So remember, we're still at the auditory level. You will not take any paper, any pen and show slashes. You will just say tiger. Now, supposing your name is Mamta, then we'll say Mamta, 2 syllables. But supposing you had Mamata, there are people from the south who are called Mamata. So that though there is a single vowel that's inserted, you see the 2 syllables become 3. What I'm trying to say is it's very easy to do it auditorily first. The child has no vision of the written word. It is when the written word comes in that causes more confusion. Like say a word like same. If you clap out same, it's 1 syllable. But when you go to see, it has 2 vowels, 1 in the middle and 1 at the end. So you may be confused. So it's better to teach syllabication as an auditory thing. What do you hear? Do you hear samer? No, we hear same. So we go with the fact that it is 1 sound and therefore 1 syllable. Okay.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to give one strategy. Put your hand over here under your chin and then say on it. So we are saying Mam Ta. So can you see your hand goes down twice?
Right. This is also a strategy. Like I said, yes, you can snap your fingers, you can clap your hands, you can put your hand under your chin and see the vowel. Like for example, Mamata, you would see your chin dropping 3 times. Mam, a, ta. Right. So you can teach the child kinesthetically, but it's still an auditory exercise.
Absolutely.
Okay, so progressing from syllabication, we go to a finer thing. You see how I'm showing you the broader aspect of language, and then we're going shorter, finer, and then even closer to phonics. So all languages have several phonemes in them. A phoneme is a single unit or a single speech sound. So now that we know what syllables are, we can further divide them into singular phonemes. Like phonemes are represented by letters as well, and that's where phonics comes in. But first, it is a speech sound, okay? So they're represented, each speech sound is represented by letters. We all know that in the English language, we have 44 speech sounds and so on and so forth. In other languages, we have a huge amount of sounds, but it doesn't matter right now because we are talking about just the single sound called a phoneme. So this is a progression. When you talk about, the aspects of how progression of reading happens, we go always from the larger aspect to the smaller aspect, which is now we will talk about phonemes. But in the earlier days, what they used to do was they would introduce a letter, teach you the sound, and then you would go on to the word. So today things are very much different. We're going with vision where the child sees when he starts to look around, he finds vocabulary within his surrounding, and auditory, okay? So when the auditory aspect is enforced, that's when language develops. So we always go from the broader to the narrower, okay? And then of course we go on to reading, which is a more difficult task and it's even finer, and then so on and so forth towards spelling. Sometimes you have words that sound the same. Supposing you're talking about two words like sun and sun. When I'm saying them, they sound exactly the same. In this aspect, of course, you will bring comprehension inside and you will explain to the child that one sun is the one that we see shining in the sky. The other one is a child, a male child of parents of a couple. So comprehension also goes side by side. But because we're talking about reading, I'm going to talk about the natural progression for teaching phonological awareness. We'll talk about all these one at a time, but I hope one thing is very clear, which is that the umbrella of phonological awareness includes things like word awareness, rhyming, alliteration, syllable awareness, onset rhyme, phonemic awareness. All of these I will tackle in a bit. Now, is there any further question or can we take the next part of the session? Okay, I think all doubts are clear. Let's move on. Bela, you have another question for me?
I also wanted to know, how is phonological awareness different from phonics? I mean, how do you differentiate the two?
Okay, so before we go on to that bifurcation, I want to explain a little bit more about phonological awareness in case anybody has not understood. So like I said, we break up. When we say we break up the words in a sound, in a sentence, we break up the words and we form chunks, right? So these are spoken. This is all auditory, right? And they form the system of language. So when we are listening, we mean that we are absorbing all the sounds that are in the environment. So you begin with raw sounds and then eventually raw sounds in the sense the fan moving, the glass breaking, or your mother walking into the room. And then we move on to actual sounds. But why I want to emphasize this is because phonological awareness is very, very critical to reading success. Now we're talking of progression of reading. Why am I going on saying that we should, train our children? Because there is research that says that there are children who will learn automatically, right? But there are children who may not, and they will struggle in the areas of reading, which you will find out soon. As I understand, the group that we have today is all teachers of pre-primary level. Am I right?
Yes.
And maybe some primary. So we're still talking about the conceptualization of reading success, right? And because this is so hands-on and auditorily orientated, we have to teach it explicitly. Because remember the earlier statistic, those who belong in one of those two groups of 20 to 25% or 7 to 10% who do not achieve language automatically, there is a big chance that they will fail in reading little later on because it won't come up at the inception years. Some show up Some who are more severely involved will show up by the first grade or so. But those sometimes some escape the eye till the third grade, when actually the foundation is not, is not strong, and they have difficulty reading at that level. And then you'll have to backtrack and go back. This is why I would suggest to you teachers, my group of teachers that I have here, that teach it as a very explicitly taught skill. Because if you teach it, you know for sure that you're avoiding a lot of difficulties and roadblocks later. So now we were talking about how it is different from phonics, right? So phonics is the teaching of the letter symbol association. Now, my talk is all overlapping. That's because it's not easy to keep the two things apart. They all are dependent on one another, like a Venn diagram. They're all overlapping strategies. So when we talk of phonics, it is that each single sound, like I said, English has 44 sounds. We talk of each sound and link it up to each letter. Like supposing I'm saying the sound L, for example. L represents a sound which is linked to the letter L, which may be at the beginning of the letter, of the word lamp, right? So this is how phonics is different from phonological awareness, right? Also in phonological awareness, we will learn about things like rhyming, alliteration, all the things that I spoke about. Whereas when we come to phonemic awareness, it is a phonic instruction, which is a letter to sound correspondence, like I've said, and it teaches you how to encode and decode. Very, very important words. Now, for example, supposing I write a letter like rat on the board, okay? Simple 3-word letter. So I ask one of the children to come up and read that letter. What am I doing? Can anybody tell me what I'm doing? Am I asking them to encode or decode? Don't worry, this is not a test. This is so that
tell
you
them
know.
to write the letter?
No, I have written the word hat or rat, say hat, on the board. And I ask a child to come up and read it. What am I asking them to do?
Ma'am, decode.
Decode.
Decode, correct. Because there is a code up there. It is H, A, and T, which is the code, right? It is a written aspect. It is something that is already there on the board. And you have to decode the language, decode the words to find out what the word is. So there you're decoding. So reading is always a decoding activity because you're reading it. Now let's talk about encoding. Now supposing I call out a word and I say, Amrita, please write the word rat. Okay. So what happens? Amrita has to go to the board and write, think in her mind, what is the word that represents at, the 3 sounds that make up rat? Is R. Okay, I'm going to write R and then A and then T, right? So she has to come up with those things that have been taught from her memory, right? From her past experience, and she's writing it. So that is encoding. So is it very clear the difference between decoding and encoding? Any questions on that aspect? Okay. So we need to teach both these skills side by side, but we have to definitely begin with intensive phonological awareness. So we make sure that fluency also follows. Once the child is fluent with these aspects of auditory involvement, then it moves up much faster. So do you understand the difference between phonemic awareness and phonological awareness? One is a broad-based language approach and the other one deals with explicitly with single sounds which are linked to letters. Okay, so any questions regarding that? Anybody has a question? Okay, so I'm
Absolutely
glad.
clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everybody just got it. You said it so well,
Okay. So do you have, we can.
Yes, so I think we should go on to the next question since we are sort of done with this one.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, we've been talking about everything being auditory, and what are the auditory gaps you usually see in children?
Okay. So those who have not had explicit instruction will show auditory gaps, like they may show auditory gaps in understanding what rhyming is, alliteration is, sound patterns, and patterns within letters. Okay. Now, why is this so important? These are auditory gaps. If the child has not explicitly been taught by their teacher how to recognize these things in language, they will often not be able to read later. Now, for example, all of us know Jack and Jill went up the hill. There's a rhyme right there. Jack and Jill went up the hill. So when we talk about rhyming, this is the part that we're talking of. When you find that your child is unable to rhyme, to find the rhyme between the two, if you're saying Jack and Jill went up the hill, he's not forming an actual association between hill and Jill, right? He's just breaking it up like that. Or if, for example, if you ask a child to come up with a word that rhymes with, say, cat, he should be able to come up with something like rat, right? So what happens when the child is not able to either hear that there are two words that rhyme with each other, or he's not able to come up with the rhyme for another word? There is definitely a gap, an auditory gap, because they're not writing yet. So we're not talking about the written aspect, but definitely there's an auditory gap. Okay, like there are combinations. There are words like blue and blue. Okay, I'm talking about the two different comprehension. I mean, the words that that we can understand differently. Blue, B-L-U-E, is the color blue, whereas B-L-E-W is blue. Say a person blew candles on his birthday. But auditorily, are they not the same? They are. So when somebody asks you whether blue and blue rhyme, yes, they are the very same auditory, the very same consistent pattern in the auditory area. So though they are written separately and spelled differently and mean two different things, till we don't write it out or we don't use it in context, we won't know the difference because they are exactly the same. Also, one more tip, when you're teaching somebody something, you can also close your mouth and teach it. Because if I say the word mat and I say the word nat, you're getting a big clue from my mouth. Mat says at. Mat, I am pressing my lips together to form the sound But when I say nat, I'm touching the tongue to the roof of the mouth and saying nat. But if I cover my mouth, mat, nat, you might not get the subtle difference between the two, right? So because visual forms such a big part of learning the language, that's why if you want to lay emphasis on the auditory aspect, you should cover your mouth and say it to the child. You can say it behind a board that you put in front, behind the child's back, and see if you can strengthen these aspects, right? If the child is able to come up with words that rhyme with each other, that's great. If they can, that is generation of rhyme, or if they can identify the rhyme between, within a sentence, like I said, Jack and Jill went up the hill. He's able to tell you the Jill and hill rhyme. These are great things to start. So when you have auditory gaps, you will work on rhyming. You will work on syllabication. Like I said, you can tap it, use the chin method. You can clap it. You can even, like I said, tap it if you have something. I don't have my table so high, so you can tap. Narinder. So the 3 syllables, you can tap them out as well. So tap, clap, snap, the chin method, all of these are very, very helpful. And what is extremely important is revisiting. Even if the child is in the 3rd grade, but you find that he's not able to find a rhyming word, go back to this level and fill in the auditory gap, okay? So when you fill in the auditory gap, what happens is that is the part of language that can be revisited and the gap can be covered, because that will lead to better reading and better writing as a development, as a progression of development. So it becomes, practicing this becomes smoother. Yeah, is there any difficulty in understanding what I have shared so far?
Can I ask a question, Aysel?
Yes, tell me, Sandhya.
Yeah. Aysel, is it possible that the auditory gaps are because of the absence of the visual aspect in the listening part? You said it should be only auditory and not accompanied by anything else. But if it was accompanied by visual, then will there be an auditory gap? You know, the children will learn faster, isn't it? Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
When we're teaching anything, whether it's language, history, whatever you want to teach, it's always good practice to do a kinesthetic approach, which is not just visual and auditory, but also, VAKT approach, which is using all the senses. They can smell an apple, they can cut an apple, they can eat it, taste it, talk about the color, talk about the shape, touch it, say A stands for, A is the letter that represents A as the first sound in an apple, all of that. But when you're trying to fill an auditory gap, you will block out vision and touch and all, and enforce that so that the child is using that domain. You know what, if let me make my example a little clearer. A child who cannot see very well, is not strong in the area of vision, will depend a lot on the auditory, right? On the auditory mode of learning, or vice versa. If a person is not very good at hearing, she will depend a lot on the vision aspect, right? On his or her eyes. But if we are trying to strengthen that domain, make no mistake, not to leave out anything, but if we are trying to strengthen that domain, and especially in the inception years, we're not going to keep showing flashcards to a child. There was lots of research that was done, and they said show the child the book as soon as they're born and all of that. But what about the auditory aspect? That is the time to build on that, right? And we should not lose out on that at all, because the auditory aspect is so important in forming language. The moment you pick up your child who's crying, you say, oh, my baby, don't cry. I'm here. Mama is here. Do you want milk? Are you wet? Should I change you? All this is auditory. Now, if he cannot make sense of the language, it's not a natural progression. He's going to just learn a lot of letters which you're putting in the pram and putting in the crib and all of that. But the auditory aspect is missing. So like I said, one is not exclusively away from the other. They're all combined. But this is very, very important at the initial stage, when you're not yet, taking a paper and holding a pen and showing letters and all of that. You're still talking to the child. So you can do this very, very easily. Right. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
I want to add to that.
Thank you so much.
To add to that. Sandhya, you're not teaching a child hill, bill, kill, sill.
Right. Yes.
Right. You're not showing him those
correct
ILL every time you're talking.
Right.
But the child is actually listening to that.
Correct.
And once that child has already listened to that, then you're sort of associating those letters and the child is making sense of the whole thing.
Right. I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. To get back to your example, Sandhya, one small thing is that supposing I have a test tomorrow, okay? And I am very, very strong in the auditory area. I'm a big child. I have a test tomorrow. I'm going in for the test. And I've come to know only today, or I'm a last minute work and I want to learn. And auditory is, would I sit and make notes at that time? Or would I rather put it on a cassette and listen to what I'm saying? So for the exam,
Aysel, we can't hear you anymore. You're very soft.
I don't know. Now can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened there. So I'm saying tomorrow I'm a bigger child and I have an exam and I'm in grade 5 and I have to learn, and my auditory domain is very strong. So if I'm targeting a test tomorrow, I will definitely, rather than sitting and writing notes, which is more kinesthetic, or reading the chapter from the book, I will definitely put it on a cassette or whatever on my phone and listen to it, because my auditory domain is strong. But if I have a month before the exam, and I have to learn the whole thing, and I know I will put it on a phone, I will read it, I will write it. So the idea is not to ignore the other two, but to see which takes precedence at that time. I have my test tomorrow, my auditory domain is strong, use it. But if I have time, I will use the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, whatever mode that works for me. Okay. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Aysel. Yeah, thank you.
Most welcome.
I have another question for you, Aysel.
Yes.
I'm sure you heard about the whole language approach. So can you throw some light about that and how it's different from the phonics approach?
Okay. So there's a lot of literature that has been written about both these aspects, and both have their strengths and both have their weaknesses as well. Because, I mean, a lot of automatic learning comes through the whole language approach. Like there are people who believe that, language must be taught as a whole and sentences must be given to the child as a whole. Even, I mean, if you're talking about simple things like sight words and words that have phonemic structures, they can be taught. Like a sight word would be taught as a whole word approach. Like there's no way to break up the into ter, her, e. If you say ter, her, e and you blend it together, it's not going to be the, it's just going to be ter, her, e, te, which makes no sense to the original word. So there is something called a whole language approach as well, which believes that language should be taught as a whole. And there is another argument that says, no, it should be taught through synthetic phonics, and it should be taken as a good, I mean, as a progression from the phonological aspect to the phonemic aspect, which is the last part. But there is no fixed outcome on that research. I have been reading a lot on both these approaches, and I find that it is also very individual, because there are schools that follow one complete method and there are schools that follow the other. I would say take a mixed approach, because also you have to check the child and where he or she is at that point in time. So it may be different for different children. Like, for example, if you have a child with low IQ, I would suggest teach the whole word pizza as it is, right? Because there's no point. In fact, then I would say do the whole language and the whole structure approach, where the child, supposing you know that Rahul loves pizza, I would teach pizza and I would say, I am Rahul, I love pizza, I eat it every Tuesday. There are many sight words in that: Tuesday, pizza, all of that. But if I was a child who was strong in the phonic approach, who was just had maybe learning disability and not an intellectual disability, I would try to use the words like break them up into smaller portions and teach a and and then teach sight words also side by side, and then he would be able to say, I am Rahul, I like pizza, whatever it may be. So there are, I don't want to get into that whole argument because there's too much literature in that area. Also, I find it personally, if you ask me, I find it not only inconclusive, but I find that both have equal weightage. So we cannot ignore one for the other. We should use a blended approach, just like we're doing now when we're doing online classes. We're doing a complete hybrid and blended approach. So you're listening to me, but you're also going to go home and I hope revisit, read up a little bit, talk to your children if you're taking any children in person, and help them with actual practice, right? So that's as far as whole language approach and, a non-structured.
So you have a valid point that you can, each child is different, so teach them the way he can learn. So that's one thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking and I was mute.
Oh.
So, yeah. So right now, Aysel, can you share some strategies on how a teacher can bridge all these gaps to support and, early foundation in reading? Okay. So I also want you to include strategies that we can use with learners that have difficulty in learning.
Okay. So like we've been talking about, the aspect of reading and what comes before it. This is the foundational skills of literacy that we're trying to build, right? I'm not talking about the foundation skills of numeracy, just literacy at this point. Now, when we talk of the progression of filling the gaps. So I would emphasize a whole bunch of things which I will do one by one. One is we've already spoken about in this phonological awareness umbrella. The first one would be word awareness. Okay, when I say word awareness, you remember I spoke to you about I like hamburgers. We are talking about words like that. So you would teach explicitly to your child. You would talk and say a sentence like, the ball is red, and ask him to tell you how many words he heard in that. Words, mind you. So you would say, the ball is red. So that's how many words? 4. That is your word awareness. You could say it slowly, so that because you don't know whether he knows it, and you're teaching it at this point. You're not checking, you're not testing, but you're teaching. Remember, there's a big difference. Here you already know that your child has learning difficulties or is at the learning level. So we will talk about teaching strategies, right? So you would say it, you don't say the ball is red, because that has no meaning if you're trying to teach word awareness. So first step is teaching word awareness. The ball is red. Can you tell me how many words the sentence had? So this is, they are taking away words from the sentence, and this is the first step, which is called word awareness. The second step is, I'm presuming there's no difficulty with that, and I'm going to go through all the steps and we can take the questions at the end, because I would like the fluidity where this part is concerned. So once word awareness is done, you can go on to rhyming awareness. We also spoke about this a little earlier, but I want to put it in a categorized form. So rhyming awareness, you could use words like mat and hat that rhyme. Okay, so you need to make the child aware, where he can not only identify the words that rhyme, but he can provide it also or generate it, right? You can say, basically, what is rhyme to you? Rhyme is a unit of sounds that come at the end of a word, which is the same. Like, for example, if we say mat and hat, M and H, or and H are two different sounds, but the sounds at, the word family, as you all call it, at, is the same. The back of the word, the final part of the word at, is the same. And that is what contributes to a rhyme. The fact that the final sounds are the same. So just like mat and hat, you could have pin and bin. Again, the in family, they are the same, right? You can have a am family like jam and ham, which again have the rhyming unit that is the same. So after that, you would teach rhyme awareness. So you have word awareness, rhyme awareness. The third part would be alliteration. You'll all know what alliteration is. Now, alliteration talks of sounds that are at the beginning of a word that are the same. Like when we have all these fun ones, Betty bought a bit of butter, but the butter was bitter. So Betty went back and bought some better butter to make the bitter butter better, right? That's a whole lot of B sounds. We can just limit it when you're teaching the child. You don't need to go through this whole exercise. That was just to alert you to the sound B. But you can say Betty bought butter. Can you hear the sound that is the same? These are sounds that are coming in the beginning of the word. So that's the sound B. So you can get them to say different things. Like suppose I say, a few friends fought, or 5 flowers, anything, that has the same sound in the beginning. That is your alliteration. So we have now word awareness. I am saying it again and again because I want you to understand the progression. We're going from word awareness to rhyme awareness to alliteration. And alliteration and or sound awareness come together. That's the second part. The third one would be syllable awareness, which again we have done. So, and now supposing I'm talking about Zarina. Can you tap the syllables in your name and tell me how many syllables you have?
Zarina.
3, right?
Yes.
Great. Amanpreet? Amanpreet, would you like to help us with how many syllables your name has? Okay, doesn't matter. I'm just going to yeah. Are you saying anything, Amanpreet? Okay, I'm going to generate some words myself. Supposing I have a word like bat. Can you all tell me how many syllables that is?
One.
One.
Yeah, keep your mutes,
One.
mics open only. Terrific.
3.
Terrific.
4.
Terrific. That was terrific. Okay, who said 4? I am not pinpointing at you. I want to clarify a few things. Terrific. So that's 3. Unless you're saying terrific. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. I said like
So,
that only.
okay. Yeah, I know because I have had this very often as an answer. But it's not 4. If a child comes to you and says 4, you ask him how. Okay. And when they say things like this, terrific, then you say, okay, let's join the whole thing and see what you get. Terrific. Is terrific the word I said? No, I said terrific. So terrific. Make it very crisp, but very clear to your child what to, listen for. Don't go by the spelling at all. You're not reading, you're only listening. Then supposing I say table. Can somebody tell me how many syllables table has?
2. 2.
Right. What about, yes. What about computer? Computer?
3.
Hippopotamus?
5.
Okay.
5. 5.
Okay, we have two different answers. Sandhya is saying 5, 4, and Dipti is saying 5. Dipti, would you like to tap and tell me?
5, ma'am. I said 5, ma'am.
Okay. So everyone is sure that it's 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, ma'am, 5.
Okay, so whoever said 4, now let's clear the difficulty. Hippopotamus. Get that, everyone? So that's what is syllable awareness. So we have word awareness, rhyme awareness, alliteration, now syllable awareness. Okay. So now when we have syllable awareness, we will go on, we can also give them compound words like rainbow. To make it easier, start with compound words, because compound words often are 2 words that have been joined together and have individual meanings. So rain has a meaning and bow has a meaning. So it becomes very easy. Then you go on to one word with 2 syllables like basket or picnic. So what happens is you're moving from 2 words, which are compound words, made to understand, like rain and bow do not. Yeah, like rain and bow are 2 separate words, but when you put them together, they become a compound word. So start with compound words and then go on to individual words that have more than 1 syllable, like basket, picnic, all the things that I have explained to you. Okay, now we move on to the next part, which is onset and rhyme. Now this is not R-H-Y-M-E, this is R-I-M-E, rhyme, which means that onset is the word, the letter that begins a word, and rhyme is all the words that follow, all the letters that follow after that, from the vowel upwards. So supposing I say brunch. So the onset is br and unch is the rhyme, R-I-M-E, not R-H-Y-M-E. Okay, this is a different thing. It's called onset and rhyme. So br, unch. So br is the onset and unch is the rhyme. Okay, so you see how we're moving in the progression of language. Or supposing you don't want to take a digraph in the beginning, you just want to go to tack, where maybe there's a digraph at the end. So you can say tack. So in tack, which would be the onset? Can anyone help me?
Tack.
T is the onset and at is the rhyme. Okay. So now the last sub-skill from all these, we've moved on to onset and rhyme. And now the last skill is the phonemic awareness. Here we are talking about individual sounds, which are phonemes. So supposing there's a word like bin. Now you see how we've come down to the letter level or the sound level. So if we have a word like bin, we could say b, I, n, 3 sounds. That is your phonemic awareness. Now, you know how phonological awareness has phonemic awareness as a subskill, but it's the most difficult subskill. So we will definitely tackle it at the end. Within phonemic awareness, I'm not talking phonological now, I'm talking phonemic awareness. Within that, we have many other tiny subskills. One is identifying the first sound in a word. It's called isolation of sound. Like supposing I say, I'm saying the word fan. Can you tell me the sound that you hear in the beginning of the word? So the person should say, that is isolation or identification of a sound. Then the second one would be segmenting. Suppose I say the same word fan. Give me the 3 sounds that you hear in it. So the child should be able to say fan, right? These are your segmenting. You've given the whole word and the person is segmenting it. Then we will say, tell me what you hear when I say these individual sounds. You give me the word. So the child should be able to blend them together and get the word fan and give it to you. Okay. So that was isolation of sound. That is your initial sound. Then we came to segmenting. Then we came to blending. After that, you can teach deletion of sounds. Deletion is a little difficult. So supposing I say, I'm saying rat. You can keep your mics on now. When I say rat and you take away the sound r, what do you have left?
At.
Correct. So this is deletion of a single sound and you get the child to identify this is again all auditory. Right now I'm going to make the task a little more difficult. Supposing I say the word plop, but don't say ill. What is left?
Pop.
Pop.
P-O-P, pop.
Correct. Plop and remove ill. Delete ill. So you have pop.
Pop.
Now we're going to go through a whole bunch of exercises. Supposing I say the word clap, but don't say k.
Lap.
Then then we go on to the final sound removal. Suppose I say the word lap, but don't say, change to What do you have?
Lamb.
Lamb. Lamb.
Right. Or supposing I had said the word is lap, but change the medial sound, the middle sound, change a to I. What will you get?
Lip.
Lap.
Lip.
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 A to I.
Leg. Lap.
To I or E?
Yes, think about it. I'm saying lap, lap. Change the medial sound to I.
So lip.
Lip. Correct, lip. Now I'm saying add to lip at the beginning, add the sound k. What do you get? Clip. So you see, you can go more and more, make the task more and more difficult for the child with progression, of course, but you have to make sure that you have worked so much in the auditory domain that there will be, no difficulty when the child moves on to reading. Right. So any questions for me so far in the progression of firstly phonological awareness, then you have all the subskills, then phonic awareness, phonemic awareness, and all the subskills that belong there. So if you as a teacher make a daily routine of doing this kind of exercise for just 5 or 10 minutes a day in a group, you can easily accomplish a lot. And what will happen is that reading will get much, much more easy for the child. Yeah. I also want to, because it's 5 o'clock, I don't want to keep you. I want to share one more small statistic with you, is that phonological awareness, keep it in mind, is the most common cause for poor reading. Poor readers who have difficulty in reading, they have traced it back to phonological awareness. It promotes your orthographic mapping. which is of course all big words that may not make sense to you. But basically, if you teach phonological awareness, what happens is, we have a storage system in our brains here, which maps what you're hearing to what you already have learned. So when you teach a lot of phonological awareness, it's easy to do this orthographic mapping, which is taking the words that you have now and linking it to what you have in your already learned in your past experience. So this mapping makes things fluent for a child. They can retrieve it fluently. If they cannot retrieve it fluently, you need to revisit it so that they can, retrieve the stuff fluently. It becomes immediate, effortless. I should not be thinking, oh God, what is this word? No, it should be fluent. So it should be fluent, immediate, effortless. And remember one very important thing. There is hope at the end of the tunnel because 30 to 40% develop phonological awareness. If do not develop, 30 to 40% do not develop phonological awareness unless explicitly taught. What does that tell you? That means you teachers are at the helm of this and you can take this up so that that 30 to 40% do not become involved and they do not develop reading disorders. This is a proper research, not by me, that I can quote. It's Kilpatrick 2016, so you can look it up, and it prevents many reading difficulties. So that's what you are here for today. I would tell you, get out into the world and use all these things at the inception level so that you're preventing your 30 to 40% from becoming severely involved poor readers. Any questions for me?
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. I'm Girija Patankar.
Yeah.
I just want to know, is there any special sequence to teach them vowel? Like we have A, E, I, O, U. So
Right.
sometimes the sound of A and E, it makes it a little bit confused for the children in the initial stage, okay, as we have started just introducing them the vowels. So
Right.
can we go with A and then O and then E, I, U like that or some other way?
Okay. So to answer this, I would say you can take any vowels, but try not to take the vowels that are similar close together. Like if you take A, then you can teach O. If you're teaching I, then you can teach O. You can teach O, you would teach E. But if you teach I and E together, that is where the difficulty comes together in the sense for definitely not in the same lesson, but even from lesson to lesson or from week to week, if you finished one vowel, I would say don't teach the similar vowels together at close proximity to each other.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't matter, but A and O are the simplest ones. I normally go A, then I teach I, then I teach O, then I teach O and E.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Well, any other questions?
I don't think anybody has any more questions. Aysel, you were so clear with everything. I really enjoyed listening to you. And I really wish that I had a teacher like you because I was so bad in spellings and reading myself. So if I definitely had a teacher like you, I'd be much better than what I am today. So I hope all teachers can develop this training that you got today. Please use it for your children and let them benefit from this for sure. So thank you, Aysel, for being here today with us and sharing all your expertise with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bela. Thank you, Amrita.
Aysel, it was really wonderful having you here. Really nice. And I like the way you explained everything. You made all these very difficult concepts so simple.
And fun
so
at the
easy
same time.
to understand. Yes.
Thank you. That's what I could do in the short time. I decided to just focus on the foundation to literacy, which is, where all your teachers are at the moment. So that would be most relevant to them. I hope it did benefit everyone.
Yes, you can see the comments. Everyone's given you such lovely reviews.
Yes,
so I guess
can.
the feedback is wonderful too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. And thank you for being with us on the ABCD show. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.